And the reason, and the reason I started out with sin was when, as Brother Jeremy says, that I got saved, which is true. But I remember it was in fall revival, and I knew I was lost, and I was just continually to ignore it. I was just like, no, I'm not, it's just stress, even though I was 10. It was like, no, I'm not lost. And it was Friday night, and it was Brother Glenn, and he was talking about going into hell and never seeing your family again, the ones who went to heaven. And I thought I was going to die right then and there in the third row at church. So I left straight from there and went to the one place I knew I could be by myself, the bathroom, which proves that God is everywhere. And I remember just giving my life to God, and I was like, I'm so sorry for all the things I've done. Just live through me, and just be with me. And I was so happy. Oh, it was the best feeling in the world. I was at peace. I felt like I could climb the Himalayas and skateboard all the way down. It was just awesome. And that was pretty much the big event in my life. Everything was smooth. My big worries were food and basketball at the time and more food, maybe annoying my brother. That was just my life. And it was the end of basketball season, and I woke up one morning and I couldn't walk. And I was like, okay, well, this is odd. And my mama, the perfect panicker, took me to immediate care. And 7 years before then, my mom did the same exact thing to my dad. And my dad was diagnosed with cancer. So my mom probably was not overly excited. But we got there, and the lady said we needed to go to Forest General, that something's wrong with me. So I got back in the car, and we all went to Forest General, and they didn't know what was wrong with me, and they thought it was a mass. And if it's a mass, they could stick a needle in it and take the fluid out. And it was, I just remember, it was like a needle, ginormous needle. And they stuck it into my side, on my right side, and it wasn't a mass. Instead, it was a tumor, and when they punctured it, all the blood rushed out, and it spread the cancer. So when they could have just took the tumor out, they spread it everywhere. So that was great. But I don't know, I always had this great feeling that everything happened for a reason. So I was just trusting God and my parents, and I was like, okay. And they sent me to the only hospital that had doctors during spring break, which was Larry Batson in Jackson. And I got there, and I ended up getting an infection, and they did an exploratory search, which means that they didn't know what to look for. They just sent me in surgery and cut me open. And inside, they found a 3-pound tumor the size of a honeydew melon on my right kidney. And they took the kidney, the tumor, and 44 lymph nodes out. So I have a gaping hole. But I stayed in the hospital just for a week, and they sent me home. And everybody was like, "Oh, Karie, they got it all. The 44 lymph nodes, you're fine, it's okay." So they sent it all the way to Missouri, and 2 weeks later, I walked into a hospital in Jackson, and we was going to talk to a doctor, and I sat down, and the words that completely flipped my life upside down was, "Karie, you have cancer." So I was kind of shocked. I didn't cry, I just sat there, and I was just like, whoa. I don't remember much of my dad having it, but I do remember that it wasn't a good time, especially for my mom. So we left there, and I remember we went to a Bass Pro Shop, and I was sitting outside on the rocking chair talking to my dad, and my dad told me that it was going to be okay, that God is my strength, that God will help me. And I was like, okay. So I got a cord, and they went straight through, and it was every single week they would give me chemo. And every other week they would give me 2 types of chemo, and that was the type that made my hair fall. And it was the summer that I was 12, so it started in April, and it went until August. But I remember going up there, and at first, I was like, oh my goodness. And I would lay on the bed, and I would get the treatments, and they would give me the medicine, and I would get the pretty Barbie sticker, and I would get back in the car, and I would go home. And then it got really, really bad. And I wish I could say I was a perfect patient, but I wasn't. I didn't want to get out the car, so they made the doctors come and get me out of the car. Yeah, they still remember me by name. And so I would go in, and they would give me medicines to calm me down, and I seen them do it to the little kids, and I'm 12 years old, and I grew really, really tall. My mom said they put Miracle Grow in the chemo. But I was really tall, so I out-hide every little kid, and they were like fine with it, and I'm sitting here not wanting to get out of the car, so it was great. But I remember that my mom would always have to hold me down, and at the end I started where I would hyperventilate, and then they really would have to give me medicine to get me to calm down. And I would go home, they'll give me enough medicine to last through out the car, and I would go home, and I couldn't eat anything, I couldn't sleep, it was just miserable. The good day I did have was the day before I went back to the doctor. But my mom was home with me, so she'd always have some game with me that we should always play, but I really did not eat. And the medicine they gave me to sleep made me have like minor seizures, but I didn't know it. So I was beating myself up and I didn't know it. And I always thought, oh, my mom is holding me when I sleep, but really she was just making sure that my arms didn't hit me. So she would sleep with me and hold me down. I just, good old mothers. But everything I ate, it didn't stay down. And they gave me so much medicine, it's like, some of them had some insane side effects. So my mom would even give it to me, which was, I'm very glad of that. But I ended up being 5'6" and under 100 pounds. So I looked like a pencil, especially because I wore these big ginormous Gilligan Island hats, which made like little body ginormous head. Yeah, another great thing. But when the port is inside your body, and when they put the chemo through it, a chemo in the syringe needle that goes into your port, after 2 days you can go swim. You can be in water. So my dad did buy us a swimming pool, just so that would be my exercise, which really all I did was lay in the floaty and make my brother pull me around the well pool. But I remember it was one of the worst times I've ever been through. Like, even if I was home, I just laid on the couch. I couldn't do anything. I would see my friends outside and they would play and they would go, oh, I'm so ready for like softball and basketball, and then I just couldn't. I was just on the couch. And they would all, like my mom cleaning and my brother would be gone and my dad's working. I would just sit there and I would just talk to God like he was my best friend, because somehow my friends did disappear, some of them. But I would lay on the couch and I would just tell God about my day. Tell God what I'm scared of. Tell God what makes me happy. Tell God what I'm thankful for. If it's somebody visiting me or if it's my mom making like lasagna, I would tell God thank you. Whether or not I ate it, it just smells good. But I remember that's just what I did. I would just lay there and I would just talk to God for hours and hours and hours. I would just talk to God. And I had some really insane cravings, which meant that one day I wanted lasagna, really, really, really bad. No matter if I could eat it or not, I wanted it. And if my mom gave it to me the next day, then just the smell of lasagna would make me throw up. So the whole meal around our house had to coincide with what I wanted, which probably didn't make my brother feel good. But it was just how it was. It was either do that or I'm just going to be stuck in the side room. But it was bad. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I guess the main thing though was the fact that I was 12, going on 13, and I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk for long periods of time. Like I said, I looked like a pencil. We went to Hudson's one time, and I was really weak, so I would sit in a wheelchair, and my brother would push me around. And he was reckless. He was going really fast. And we got stopped by the guy, and I got really shy. Like, I had no social life whatsoever. And the guy stopped us, and he's like, well, can you walk? Well, truth be told, I could walk. I just couldn't walk far, and I would have to walk like this, because I would walk my feet on the out, because my nerve endings were like fried, and it hurt really bad to walk. But I could walk. I just chose not to. So I told him, yes, sir, and he was like, well, get out of the wheelchair. I was like, okay. So my dad had to carry me to the car. So that really didn't help the whole talking issue. But I just kind of really just shrunk into my little circle of family who I constantly saw all the time. But even the whole hyperventilating and my parents